My first guest, Professor Gunter Pauli, is a global speaker, an economist, an entrepreneur, an innovator, as well as a speaker. His projects and activities span around the world. I must also say that he's an author. He's mostly widely known for his book, The Blue Economy, which he wrote in 2010, proposing a new type of a business model in order for society to become more sustainable. Professor Pauli is in Nigeria for a 3-day courtesy visit, which is expected to catalyze discussions on sustainable development, innovation, and economic growth. And I have the pleasure of having him here exclusively on the program, live in the studio with me here in Abuja. Welcome, Professor Pauli, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, Nancy.
How
Thank you
are
for
you
having
doing?
me.
Good morning.
Well, I arrived from India yesterday, where we had a whole set of meetings in the format of the G20 follow-up on how can we really make a difference for the farmer? How can we make a real difference, not for Mumbai and Delhi, but for the thousands of villages where people are looking for livelihood. In the end of the day, we have to eradicate poverty. And poverty can only be eradicated if we change the business model. You know, this is the key, the business model.
The business model. I'll come to that in a bit, but I want to ask you, you arrived in Nigeria. How long ago were you in Nigeria? You were telling me a story just before we came into the studio. How long ago were you in Nigeria? This is your second visit?
No, this is probably my 12th visit.
Oh, your 12th visit. Well, when was the last time you came to Nigeria?
The last time was 10 years ago. I was here in Bauchi. I went to the university and we, I like to reach out to the students. I like to wake up the students and inspire them, make them think of something.
Is it because you're a professor?
I'm a professor, and professors, they like to profess.
They like to profess.
But I was in Bauchi, but my very first visit was very important in 1980, when actually I had the opportunity to come 5 times between 80 and 82 to support Chief Abiola in the Nitel project, which was the big telecom initiative, a very successful program, where a lot of the equipment was actually brought in by Belgium. And so as a Belgian citizen, I was able to play a small role in securing that the financials were running all right.
Okay, let's start now with the concept of the blue economy. How did that concept, how was the idea of the blue economy born, really?
So originally, I need to go back to 1994 when I was made by the Japanese government and the United Nations University. I was put in charge of the think tank to prepare COP3, so the COP of Kyoto. So I was at COP1, COP2, COP3. And I was asked to imagine what competitive model could we have whereby we use the resources that are available. And it stemmed from a lot of frustration with the green economy. Because in the green economy, everything that's good for you, everything that's good for the environment is expensive. It means it's for the rich. I mean, how could you have a transition towards a green economy when everything is costing much more money? So the United Nations and the Japanese government asked me, how could we have a competitive business model whereby you are generating more value and not just cutting costs? And that was the beginning of the blue economy. Of course, 70% of the unused resources in the world are the oceans and the seas. So immediately we saw this massive opportunity to develop new business models using the available resources, even the depleted resources.
Okay, so would it be right for me to say that you transited from the green economy to blue economy because the green economy is expensive and also for the rich, in your own words? That's one. Then number 2 is there still a sense in pursuing green economy businesses?
Well, I think that anyone who makes an effort to reduce pollution is making a good effort, but it's not good enough. I mean, we really need to change the paradigm of the business. I mean, I give you a small example of a project that was implemented in South Africa and which later was quoted on the London Stock Exchange and became a unicorn. You have a slaughterhouse. Parts of the animal is not used and is thrown away. We use the offal from the slaughterhouse to farm maggots, flies lay their eggs, the maggots grow, and within 5 days, a kilogram of eggs turn into 350 kilograms of protein. That is great feed for your catfish or for your chickens. So all of a sudden, I'm using a resource that is locally available. I'm cutting the cost for the chicken farmers, who can now compete against the Brazilian frozen imports, and I can secure that there is fish farming. And that combination reduces the imports, increases competitiveness. That is blue economy in practice. Or we have, like in Morocco, we have depletion of the fish farming because the trailers have been going up and down the coast all the time, and there's no more seaweed. Now, when you have seaweed, the small fishes can hide. If you don't have seaweed, the predators eat them all. As a result, we restarted the planting of seaweed. But when you have seaweed, which is the first big project was done in Tanzania, in Pemba, in Mafia, in Zanzibar, when you have seaweed, you produce a lot of biomass. That biomass we turn into gas. You can ferment seaweeds into gas. So we could supply local villages gas while we're regenerating the stocks of the fish. So those kind of initiatives allow us to generate much more with what is available, generate the jobs, generate the food, and reduce the dependency on the imports.
Green economy is about reduce, reuse, and recycle. And I've heard you say, perhaps also in different fora, that blue economy is about regenerate. What what do you mean by that?
Well, what I'm doing is we're regenerating the economic system. So first of all, the ecological system. Okay. I'm securing, as we have proven on many islands, that we can generate more fish stock than was ever there before. So we regenerate the fish stock. Now, regenerating the fish stock means the fish need to be hide when they're small. That means I can produce gas. So I'm generating gas and fish stock at the same time. So I'm regenerating an ecosystem that becomes productive. When we are looking at, for example, coffee in Zimbabwe. Coffee in Zimbabwe, you have a lot of the waste. You need to prune the bushes. The wood from the bushes is hardwood. It's like an oak. And so we farm a mushroom in it. So all of a sudden, you have the coffee farming and mushroom farming. You get two revenues. You regenerate, in the first place, the ecological system, but second, the social system.
Because you actually said earlier that for people that like coffee, there's just 0.2%.
Yeah.
Of the whole tree, of the whole stuff, goes into the coffee that they drink. So what happens to the remaining 99.8% of the coffee stem or whatever? So from what you're saying now, there should be regeneration. We should use the whole of the coffee tree,
right,
to make other things.
So if you look at the coffee, it's like you have a cherry, and the flesh you throw away and you only eat the bean. What happened to the flesh? It's the richest source of antioxidants. So why do we throw antioxidants away? And that's where I come back to the business model. We're focusing on what is called core business. Core business means the coffee, and you forget the antioxidant. Now we have thousands of farmers in Zimbabwe who are earning double revenue by using what today they were throwing away. And you know, it's very simple in Africa when you talk to women and you tell them you can take the waste and you can farm a mushroom and in 2 weeks you have your first harvest. What do? They get up, they sing, they dance, they do it. What do the people in offices do? Big offices, they want a business plan. They want a technology audit. They want to study. We need to stop studying the details. We have more than 200 cases that have proven we can do it. So learn from who has done it, apply it, and eradicate poverty, because that's what's the priority.
So you're in Nigeria for 3 days. I understand you're going to be meeting with government officials. Are you encouraged that the Nigerian president has created a Ministry of Blue Economy, Marine and Blue Economy, and we now have a minister for that? How encouraged are you, and what are the kind of things you will be discussing with government officials, perhaps also the minister? And what are the things that you're going to be directing or telling the minister, these are opportunities, you've been to Nigeria, this your 12th time. So you actually also a bit understand the terrain and opportunities in that sector. So what are you going to be telling government officials in that space?
Well, first of all, I honor the president for having taken the decision to dedicate time and resources and intellect to creating the Ministry of the Blue Economy. So first of all, that's an act of leadership because it is not the traditional way of looking at the economy. So first, that is to me very key. Second, I'm a very practical person. We need projects on the ground. I mean, it is like impatience reigns and you need to hit the ground running. So one of the first things we look at is all imports and exports in Nigeria are actually coming through ports over the sea. So if you are a seafaring nation, what you're in desperate need of as a seafaring nation is a different way of shipping. We have an issue. There is insecurity in the region. If you have insecurity, you don't have an insurance. If you don't have an insurance, you don't have the business. And as a result, we're going to look at new ways of doing shipping and transport of goods. You know, the time of the huge container ships has arrived, but it is not going to come to Nigeria. You know, there's big ships with 25,000 containers. If you want to offload 25,000 containers, you need 17 kilometers of trucks. Where are you going to put them in Lagos? I wish you good luck. 17 kilometers for one ship. So one of my messages is, let's look together at the new way of transport. We need to look from basically Cameroon all the way to Ghana. How can we rethink transport, not with the models of ships that we have had today, but zero-emission ships? We have agreements in Asia, we have agreements in the South Pacific to deliver with small ships that completely operate on solar and hydrogen. Small ships that operate all the time. We don't need subsidies for fuel, as is being requested and where people are striking for. We are in need of a transportation system whereby we can overcome climate change. Because climate change means that the Niger River doesn't have the water anymore to even think about transporting up the river. We need to see how can we unlock, instead of having 6 national ports, how can we have 100 small ports across? Because we know that transport is a challenge and therefore we need to use the sea. So these are some of the initiatives, new forms of transport, business models that go from Cameroon to Ghana and have there the power of the Nigerian economy and unlock this import and export so that even the smaller villages and not only the 6 big ones, you know, in this 850 kilometers of coast you have, how can 6 ports serve the nation?
The
It's
nation.
not possible.
No, okay, so now you're talking about transport as one of the blue growth areas for Nigeria. Are there other areas, blue growth areas that could be quick wins for us? Because you have other blue growth areas, aquaculture, mineral resources, fisheries, offshore oil and gas, of course. I don't even want us to talk about that because that's, we talk about that regularly because Nigeria is even an oil producing country, renewable energy and all of that. What are the quick wins that you could be speaking to the minister about in terms of minister or government officials? These are the areas you should be looking at. That's one. Then number 2, the area of also blue finance, because there's also a lot of money there. How can Nigeria begin to put in or begin to look at bankable projects that would also attract blue finance?
Right. So there are dozens of sectors we can explore. We need to see where the low-hanging fruits that will make long-term inroads. For example, energy. I remember from the 1980s the NEPA cuts, you know, and it hasn't gone away. So what we're saying is that we can create pockets of 100% energy security and water security with a new technology. You know, when you're on the coast, you're guaranteed wind day and night because the inversion of the temperatures. We learned that even in high school. So we have developed what is called high altitude wind kites. We capture up to 1.5 megawatt with one kite. So a kite has the great advantage that you arrive with a container, you install, and you connect. Now, that is a revolution because it means wind energy that gives you power 24 hours a day. That can be installed. And when you have 2 kites operating, you will have water guarantee, electricity guarantee. Now you can create small and medium-sized enterprise because there is security of energy. If you don't have security of energy, you can't process coffee and cacao. You can't process your fish. You can't do what is required to bring your product to the market. So one is energy and water combined. A second one that I think is very important is all related to packaging. You know, whenever you have, be it the fish, be it the lobster, be it the coffee, or be it the cacao, you need to package it. I mean, how are you going to bring cashews to the market if you don't have a packaging? And one of these packaging forms that we're proposing is bioplastics. I'm the chairman of the largest bioplastics company in Europe, but we work with petroleum industry. We take the old petrochemical facilities of Eni in Italia, and we transform that into a biorefinery. Nigeria is a tropical country. You have all the biomass you need to be able to produce bioplastics. That's one area. But the second area is what we call the stone paper, mineral paper. Nigeria has a problem with water. Nigeria is importing paper. Nigeria could be producing all its own paper and packaging as cardboard from its waste from mines. When you mine, you know, when you go looking for gemstones, then you will crush rocks, you crush areas, and then you have a dusty mineral material left over. It's not sand, it's a mineral material. That we can mix with polyethylene and turn it into a paper that's resistant to water and humidity. That's what Nigeria needs. So why can't we have, for example, a plan over 5 years to have 1 million tons of paper produced, but produced from mineral resources without using a drop of water? Now, that's the kind of proposals we'd like to put forward. And you rightfully asked the question, Nancy, and the
blue
money.
finance.
The money.
Yes.
So I have a very different approach from the traditional investment bankers who would say, here is a business proposal
Exactly.
to finance.
Yeah.
No.
Which is linear business.
Which is very, so I, like I did for the Moroccan government, I wrote a book and I say, here are 10 opportunities. And go to the Middle East, go to China, go to Japan, go to Europe and say, out of these 10 projects which have the backing of the government, which one are you financing? Because we have to realize today, Nigeria is not considered a low-risk country. You're considered a high-risk
country.
And as a result, when you have high-risk country, you don't get the best credit ratings, and therefore you don't get the best
funding.
But if you have a portfolio of opportunity, you inventorize the portfolio, then investors will see in that portfolio something that really fits their strategic interest.
Okay, Prof, 2 more questions before we have to go. I also know that, in fact, if you're looking at the planet, if you're looking at Earth from space, it's been said that it's not green, it's blue, because seas are there and all of that. I want to ask, in your own expert opinion, how blue is Nigeria? I had some blue economic experts here about 3 weeks ago, and I asked them the same question. What do you think about our blue resources? Is Nigeria really blue? How much of blue do we have in Nigeria? That's one. Then number 2, how can businesses also take advantage of opportunities in the blue economy, bearing in mind that the normal way we do businesses has been the linear way in the secular economy, but this is also another area that is bringing us different opportunities. How can private businesses in Nigeria's big-time companies, I don't want to mention their names, but you know those that I'm talking about, perhaps those that make products from coffee, from cocoa, how can those kind of companies take advantage from the blue economy? What kind of businesses can the small, medium, micro and small businesses in Nigeria take advantage of the blue economy? Very quickly, we've got to go.
So, first of all, Nigeria potentially can be very blue, but today it's very brown.
Exactly.
So, potential is there.
Okay.
So, we need to put the finger on all the potential. And with my experience, I can guide the government perhaps in identifying where are the real low-hanging fruits for which money is available.
Okay.
Second of your question is we need to have an opportunity to mobilize millions of entrepreneurs. But it means your universities have to start talking about it. your universities have to create the talent. Because today the universities are teaching the old model. We need a new model. So no opportunity to embark on blue economy without having a strategy of the universities. I'm talking to vice chancellors of universities to secure that the students will be exposed to this model. And I know when they're exposed, they will go for it.
They'll go for it. Thank you very much,
Thank
Prof,
you.
for
Thank you
coming.
very much.
And I wish you a very good stay. Eat our food as much as you can, and have a lovely day.
Thank you very much.
All right, I've been speaking with Professor Gunter Pauli, who is the founder of the Blue Economy model. Of course, he's written a lot of books, and he is a proponent of Blue Economy worldwide. Let's quickly take